All right, we are going to move on into our public comments, and today we have 8 speakers. First, I'm going to recite our speaker guidelines. Speakers must observe the same rules of propriety, decorum, and good conduct applicable to members of this commission. Any speaker making personal, impertinent, profane, or slanderous remarks, or who becomes boisterous while addressing this commission, will be removed from the meeting. Everyone will have 3 minutes to speak. Please begin your comments with your name and your address. Our first speaker today is Bonnie Matthias. And give me just 1 minute, Ms. Matthias, to get my timer going. All right, go ahead. Bonnie Matthias.
Oh my gosh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. My name is Bonnie Matthias, and I live at 904 Lufkin Street, Dallas, 75217. We are speakers representing the Coalition for Neighborhood Self-Determination. This is an issue Southern Sector Rising and Neighbors United have been tracking for years. It's very important to us and environmental justice communities in this city. And that's not just in the South, that's in the South, West, North, and East. We have environmental issues all over our city. We want to ensure that the community be included in policy development and not made in a silo. Our slogan, no plans for us without us. The drafted ordinance with recommendations would be a suitable buffer, and you will receive those that shortly after the meeting for consideration. We will now turn it over for each speaker to let you know their experiences and justify the ordinance for the buffer. Thank you.
Thank you. And if all speakers could make sure that their cameras are on while they are speaking, please. Our next speaker is Jonathan Sukup. Go ahead. Oh, I saw him a moment ago. There he is.
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Sukup. I'm
Mr. Sukup, can you
yes.
turn your camera on, please?
Yes. Okay, hang on. There we go. You see me now?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Jonathan Sukup. I represent 9205 South Central Expressway in South Dallas, the Floral Farms area that's associated with Shingle Mountain. We own and manage a greenhouse operation in this part of town. And one of the things we've been looking at is the amount of dust coming into our facility, just from people hauling gravel, rocks, things from parking lots. And this is something we battled last summer with another entity that wanted to come into our community and grind up concrete. It's the amount of dust and dirt and debris that just stirred up in particulate matter on a daily basis. The amount of hundreds of trucks a day coming in and out of these facilities. It's like following a herd of cattle. And I'm not an environmentalist. I come to you as an agriculturalist. I've got pretty conservative views, but at some point you've got to start correcting these things that are going on in this part of town. These concrete plants where people aren't available to answer for what they're doing, or just milking as a cash cow. These kind of things affect my business, what I'm trying to do. We live here. This is our personal business. This is where my paycheck comes from. It's not just an investment for us. So anytime we get anything that affects the growth of our plants, how often we have to replace plastic or roofing on greenhouses so we get good light transmission, this affects our bottom line too, and how our business performs, how I, able to generate income to pay my 20 employees. It's time to start taking steps, because people aren't exercising their own responsibility and doing things that are good for the neighborhood. And that's why I come to you today, just in support of these new ordinances against some of these concrete batch plants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sukup. All right, our next speaker is going to be Jabril McDuffie.
Oh dear.
All right, Mr. McDuffie, are you on camera?
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Let's see. Hold on just one moment. We're having a technical issue. Do you want me to come back and let you figure that out?
Can you hear or see me?
We can hear you, but we're not able to make you a panelist. So if you'll just hold on 1 second, we're going to work it out.
Okay. I see that I am still in the attendees. Category.
Okay, we are going to come back to you. I apologize. And we are going to move on to, we'll come back. And our next speaker is going to be Summer Whitley.
Hi there. Sorry, I didn't know that it was my job to unmute myself. Now, start video, do that. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you giving us the time to speak on what our concerns are. First off, I'd like to say I'm so happy that we have an environmental commission. And I live in the Cedars, District 7, though. District 2, the Cedars is predominantly District 2, but I live in a very small portion of District 7 that is part of the Cedars. I've lived here for over 20 years. I'm a homeowner. I'm very active in my community. I'm on the board of the Cedars Neighborhood Association, of my HOA, amongst other community groups. I think air quality has been my biggest thing because I've grown up with allergies, using an inhaler. So fresh air is really important to me. Clean fresh air is even more important to me. That being said, we've got Occidental Chemical, which is not an abatement plant, a batch plant, but that's, you know, one of the biggest polluters in Dallas, and that's less than a mile away from me. And then we've got these batch plants, and I know with the PD 317, I was very involved with that process when they were, you know, the different districts, the different subdivisions, et cetera. And I know we have those here. And this is one of the dustiest, dirtiest neighborhoods. It's amazing but that's another issue altogether. I was recently diagnosed with 2 autoimmune diseases, which they say that can be the environment. So I'm very, very concerned for my community and myself with all this going on. That being said, I think what's really important is that we as neighbors and neighborhoods be heard by you guys. I think the only people that are going to really know what's going on in the neighborhood is obviously us. So I greatly appreciate us giving us this time. As far as positive growth and investment in this neighborhood, you already know the Cedars is like the last bastion of the circle around downtown. So there's so much growth here. There's so much investment, so much going on. And I know that, you know, getting air quality under control would be an investment for everyone. And all that, I'm just happy to be here. But what's really important is environmental justice, fair housing, and self-determination, meaning please keep us involved, listen to what we say, and consider that in the decisions that are made by the city. I really appreciate the time, and thank you again.
Thank you. And our next speaker is going to be Janie Cisneros. Just one moment. At the top.
Hi, thank you so much.
Hi. Go ahead, Janie.
Hi, thank you so much for hosting this meeting and allowing us to speak. My name is Janie Cisneros. I live at 2821 Bedford Street, Dallas, Texas 75212. I grew up and I still live in West Dallas on a street named Bedford, which is in very short walking distance to the Union Pacific Railroad tracks, the Lone Star Industrial Park, the GAF asphalt shingles manufacturer, the location where the RSR lead smelter used to be, the location where the W.R. Grace vermiculite facility used to be, but now houses a batch plant. And my home is now about 1,000 feet from the Argos batch plant that was relocated to my neighborhood in 2015 from Trinity Groves. One of my neighbors is actually only 500 feet from the Argos batch plant facility. And I can speak for both her and I when I say that we're fed up with the air pollution being allowed to penetrate our properties, degrade our quality of life, and put our family's health at risk on a day-to-day basis. We currently have 20 concrete batch plants in our district, that's District 6. The West Dallas community has had several public hearings for batch plants recently. One that wanted to locate itself about 1,000 feet from Eladio R. Martinez Elementary School. Like, we don't want any more pollution. What we want is clean air for our children to breathe on their way to and from school without the fear of these massive trucks being on their path. We want ordinances in place that help protect the most vulnerable populations in our community. There is power in data. I actually have an air quality monitor connected to my house, and there are several other monitors in my neighborhood. These monitors provide empirical evidence that our air is far from clean. At times, the air monitors warn us that the air pollution is so bad, some members of the community will experience serious health effects. And science supports these warnings. There are many studies linking exposure of air pollution to serious and chronic health outcomes like asthma, COPD, IQ loss, heart attacks, and strokes. We need policies in place that are going to protect us. It's known that batch plants will choose to locate within marginalized communities because land is cheaper. And with these types of systemic structures in place, it's no wonder we have so many environmental justice issues in our communities. So I urge you to strongly consider the proposed batch plant ordinance we're presenting today as a way to signal to constituents that the city is serious about protecting residents who have historically been burdened by decisions that seem to devalue our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is going to be Evelyn Mayo. Go ahead, Evelyn.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you for placing this item on the agenda. My name is Evelyn Mayo, and I live at 1030 Cedar Hill Avenue, Dallas, Texas, 75208. I'm the chair of Downwinders at Risk and a professor at Paul Quinn College focusing on environmental justice and land use planning. As you just heard, concrete and asphalt batch plants are harming the quality of life and public health of residents in Joppy, West Dallas, South Dallas, and Floral Farms. Given staff's role in recommending and supporting the approval of these very same batch plants, residents are skeptical of staff's ability to generate a truly protective policy dealing with this kind of polluters. That's why our coalition, including the affected communities you just heard from, has prepared a draft ordinance for this commission's and council's consideration. We emailed it earlier this morning to council and to the vice chair. We're proposing a 1,500-foot buffer between any new concrete or asphalt batch plant and homes, schools, childcare facilities, and other protected uses. Based on their potential impact to public health, the Dallas City Council has already approved this exact buffer in regards to waste incinerators and gas and oil drilling. Nuisances from these sources was one of the reasons for those distances being required by the council. Residents deserve the same level of protection from batch plants, which can be a significant source of nuisance conditions. We also propose that new batch plants must require SUPs for all zoning districts instead of just IR, which is the requirement today. Our ordinance also features a compliance schedule for existing batch plants. 2 years after the official adoption of this ordinance, all concrete and asphalt batch plants operating for 10 years or longer in the city of Dallas will be required to apply for an SUP. Our coalition believes that this is a comprehensive ordinance that deals with current and future batch plants while allowing a reasonable timeline for operators to adapt. We believe anything less than 1,500-foot buffer would not provide the level of protection our communities need in light of the scientific research. Finally, we've heard concerns from staff that state law would preclude cities from implementing buffer zones further than what the state allows, 440 yards or 1,320 feet. Some of us heard the same arguments when residents advocated for this buffer during the drilling fight. This concern is unfounded and misleading. State law only prohibits cities from passing their own restrictions on batch plants based on human health impacts, not as it pertains to local zoning and nuisance issues, which the city retains the power to address, even with batch plants. Cities that have zoning powers have the ability to further regulate these facilities beyond what the state demands, as Dallas did with both incinerators and drilling. Zoning can and should be an important tool to address the institutionalized environmental racism responsible for disparities, inequity, and pollution burdens between North and South. Even the state's 1,320-foot buffer zone applied uniformly throughout the city would offer significantly more protection than the status quo. Dallas residents deserve the most protective measures against batch plants, as the city can provide using all of its own tools as a chartered municipality, not just what the ones the state of Texas provides. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Marsha Jackson. Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Marsha Jackson. I live at 4920 Schultz Road, Dallas, Texas, 75241, in the Floral Farms Neighbors United area. I'm also a co-chair of Southern Sector Rising. And I want to thank each one of you for allowing us the time to come in and speak and voice our concerns. As you have heard from each of the speakers, the batch plant does affect each one of us, and some of us permanently. I am here advocating, continue advocating for each of the children that's in the neighborhood, because even elderly, you see how it affects us, and our children should be able to allow to grow and not have any issues of breathing. I live right, not even 4 or 5 miles from Joppa. I can stand in my street at the end of the street, and I look down the street, and you can see how those dust is flying. That's affecting from the batch plant, and people do not realize how it does affect. You heard my neighbor, Jonathan business has been heavily affected, and we would like for you guys to take into consideration the 1,500 foot buffer, because that is necessary. Even fighting Shingle Mountain, that we had at least 4 different batch plants that we had to advocate against that also coming in our community. So we would like for you to consider no more batch plants in the IRIM area. They have to have a SUP and a CO, and no longer allowing them to come in to the community or the residents until they get those. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Our next speaker is Cyrus Reed. Cyrus, go ahead when you're ready.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, so first of all, good afternoon. And I'll be the first to admit I don't live in Dallas. I live in Austin, Texas. I work with the Sierra Club, the Lone Star chapter. I know several of you. And I want to say, first of all, congratulations to the city of Dallas for CCAP, but I think more importantly for actually having an environmental commission, being a veteran in this space. I've seen many great climate action plans sit on shelves and gather dust because they didn't have an implementation or a citizens advisory committee. So congratulations to you all, and this is important work. I wanted to talk a little bit about green buildings and building codes. You'll be getting an excellent presentation later from Susan Alvarez. And we certainly support your guys' efforts to get to a net zero new building code on or before 2030. But what I wanted to talk to you about is the need to do things between now and 2030 in terms of building codes. And I say that, and you'll get some of this today, because the International Code Council and ASHRAE have both approved a 2021 International Green Conservation Code, as well as the International Energy Conservation Code. And both of those are significant improvements over the existing 2012-2015 codes that Dallas is on. And so I would urge you as a committee, I know there are other committees in Dallas that look at codes as well, but I would urge you to look at taking some interim steps in building codes. Austin has just approved the 2021 IECC last year. A number of the other cities like Houston and San Antonio, major cities, will be looking at the 21 codes this year. And then as part of that, the second thing I was going to say is, I know there's some language already in CCAP around this, but I would also urge you to look at some local amendments to encourage, we heard about equity earlier, about all future buildings, commercial, residential, to be both solar ready, so ready to add solar so that the person can decide if that makes sense for them, and also electric vehicle ready. We know a lot of the vehicle manufacturers are moving into electric vehicles. When a building gets built, it can last 40, 50 years. So it makes sense as you do new codes to look at incorporating this new technology. And there is a way to do it smartly without driving up costs and giving options, to the future residents on whether they want to actually use that readiness or not. I don't obviously have a presentation today, but I would in the future like to send some information about what some of the other cities are doing in Texas and why the 21 codes would be an important interim step. And obviously you guys need to look at both the cost of new construction, but also the reduced utility costs that balance each other out. And so with that, I'll be quiet. I don't live in Dallas. I'm not telling you what to do, but I do want to provide some information to the committee shortly. And with that, I'll be quiet.
Thank you very much. We're going to circle back to our speaker, Jabril McDuffie. Okay, we'll go ahead and take the comments even though we can't see. So if you'll just unmute. Jabril, go ahead.
Hi, sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with my video. My name is Jabril McDuffie, and I am a resident of Dallas at 4715 Stoke Street. I live in the community of Joppa. And I just wanted to first say that when I heard about the formation of this committee, I was very excited and I was very hopeful. I have been a resident of Joppa for the past almost 15 years. And when I tell you that there are times when I walk outside of the door or I open up my window to get some fresh air and there are awful smells, can't really determine, they kind of smell like chemical smells. They kind of sometimes they smell like rotten eggs. I don't know, just all kinds of things on a daily basis, pretty much. And so when you walk outside, you can visibly see dust, enormous amounts of dust on cars and houses. I have porch furniture, and literally every few days I have to wipe them down before we could even sit outside on our porch furniture. So, when I first moved here, I didn't even know when I first took a look at the area, I didn't even know that there were houses behind all of the industry. it felt like I was moving into an industrial park. And when I found out that the area that I live in is literally zoned for industry, just feet away from residential homes that have, it's a community. Joppa is historically a historical community, and it was established as a freedmen's town in 1872. And I was just so saddened to hear or to know that so much industry was actually allowed to build all around where people lived. It was just, I can't understand it or fathom it. I'm just kind of here to speak from a resident's perspective and to say that science and data, it doesn't lie. We know that no level of PM is safe for human beings, but as you've heard from other panelists, other speakers, we also in Joppa have air monitors that have been recently put up, and sometimes when I check the air monitors, I can literally see levels that are just plain scary and dangerous for people to be outside. It's very disturbing, and I just want to let you know that just to give you an idea of some of the things that myself and my neighbors are dealing with. We have, I know for a fact that within a couple of blocks radius, I know within the last 5 years of 5 people that have been diagnosed with cancer. I know 2 neighbors who have uncontrolled hypertension. I know, just uncontrolled, like the doctor doesn't know what is going on. I also know of 2 neighbors that have had strokes at a very young age. And I also know of 1 person who has had a sudden heart attack. And what do these neighbors have? And he was very young. So he was in his 40s. And so what do all these people have in common? All of these neighbors spend above average times outside, whether it be gardening or being outside. They have being outside with children, working in their yards. They spend more time outside walking and walking dogs and pets and that kind of thing. So I know I only have 3 minutes, but I just wanted to let to ask you to please, like Dr. I think it was Dr. Wilson, talked about, to please have a sense of urgency and a willingness to really actively listen to what communities need you to hear, because we need your help. And you are in a position at this point in time, each and every one of you, to make some fantastic, just major changes and rectify wrongs that have been made by the city of Dallas. And I'm so thankful for your committee to be in a position to actually make changes and make them fast and furiously. So my ask personally is that whatever, that 1,500 foot buffer, please sign off on it. Just say yes to everything and anything that you can do to help us at during a time when each and every one of us now during this pandemic are needing to stay at home and have a safe place to live. We need to be able to have homes be a safe haven as well. Thank you.
All right, and that concludes our speakers. Thanks to each of